products that are now in the market. In Collisions teams and Haggerty, we are very, very fun because we love what all the people of N26 is doing. And here is Dennis Muller. Dennis Muller is the product owner of N26, and he is in charge of scaling up the team in Barcelona. So thanks a lot for coming here, Dennis. And please, let's give applause to Dennis.
Thanks for the intro. Very, very nice, Maria. I hope you still accept me, even though I'm from Barcelona, not from Madrid. I heard there's some conflicts going on between the two cities, but I think we can move past this. It's actually quite impressive, this entire thing, this entire location. It puts a lot of pressure on me, so bear with me. I think I hope this is going to be interesting for you. Maria introduced me as like an expert in the field, but I think I would like to take a step back and actually say, maybe I just got lucky in my career that I ended up in such a fast-paced place. And please don't consider this like me sharing learning and me teaching you. This is not like this at all. This is really more about me telling you like some personal experiences I made working at N26 over the last 2 years already. And also like, I mean, specifically this talk is going to be about like how we scale the product teams at N26. When I joined, we basically have been 180 people. Now we are more about like 1,000, so like already scale like 5x, and I think it's only continuing like that. Good? Yeah. Okay, cool. Just give this guy 1 second. So we've been scaling this team like 5x. We've been scaling our company base already 10x, and it's only going to continue like that. So again, this is not even stuff only I learned, because I'm not that smart actually. It's more about like things I learned collaboratively with our fantastic team in Barcelona, with our fantastic team in Berlin, also with our fantastic team in New York, and it's, I think, really like me taking a step back. It's just what we learned, and all of this in like one nice little presentation. I'm going to keep this not so long. I saw this slot is like 90 minutes. I don't want to bore you for 90 minutes, like just talking straight. I think I would much rather like look for like a dialogue between us. I will of course have this slide deck here, like what running through like several topics that I would like to cover. But if at any point you have like a question, you can just shout, and then we can just jump right in, because I think oftentimes when you're like a presentation, you have a question, then you forget it until the end, and maybe it's not the right time to ask anymore. Maybe you want to ask like a very specific one regarding a slide. Please feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to try to keep it snappy and try to keep it like fast paced, so all of us have a nice evening. I think also it's very, very great that all of you showed up today. I mean, it's a very nice day outside, so I appreciate that all of you came today. Just 30 seconds of me. This is me a couple of months ago. Basically, I didn't change much. I just don't dress as nicely anymore. Just for you to, as a quick background, I was a founder at age 15. I was freelancing a lot. I was studying computer science and economics. I was the first employee for a startup in Hamburg, and ultimately now I ended up 2 years ago already at N26. I gave you guys all the background already of like what N26 or like how I got there. But I think now I would also like to ask you, how many actually know N26 already? Can you maybe raise your hands? Okay, that's like 70%. That's good. I was in Berlin speaking last week, same talk basically. It was like a bit more, but we are also based in Berlin. So I think I have a harder job to do today to convince you that N26 is actually like an interesting product and also an interesting company to maybe work for eventually. Can I also ask how many of you have an account already? Okay, that's already less. And now the final question, the very, very important question. How many of you have a black or a metal card? You are my friend. We can chat later. That's cool. Yeah, perfect. So about N26, we are operating right now in 24 markets. We are a mobile bank. We like started out on your mobile phone. You can consider us basically your new current account. Everything is better than before. Right now we are operating in 24 markets. Namely, I think it's just the entire Eurozone. We are expanding to the US very soon. There's also like a small mark there. We are expanding to Switzerland. And I think we just very recently announced, it's not reflected here yet, but we are also expanding to Brazil. And like later in the year, we maybe also like announce one even like another big market as well. what are we doing? I mean, as I said, like we are a mobile bank, we scaled up very quickly. This chart is of course looking very nice. Like I think it's proof of very hard work that has been done in the team. And basically, yeah, we scaled from having five customers in October 2014, even way before I joined, and scaled it up to 2.3 million in January. I think you can, if you do the math yourself, you can see that we at this point are already way past 2.3 million customers and are coming like closer and closer to the 3 million mark. What is the vision of N26? I think in general, as I said, like we want to replace your current account. We want to be your bank. We want to, yeah, I mean, be part of your daily life. Because as you can imagine, like there is not much in life that's more sensitive than money. I mean, there is like relations and stuff, but like I think money is like one of the most personal things for you in life, and that's why we set out for the journey to build a bank the world loves to use. And I always like to stretch, I think, three major parts about this vision. First one is a bank. I think building a bank is generally not straightforward, as you can probably imagine. There's a lot of pain that comes into building a bank, but still we decided not to be like one service for maybe like for sending money to friends, but we actually decided very early on to be your fully fledged account, something you can turn to for whatever you need in your financial life. And of course, we are not there yet. We cannot give you like mortgages and stuff, but we are of course like one step at a time getting closer to this grand vision of being this fully fledged bank. The second one is actually the world. We started out in general looking after, maybe in the beginning it was like Germany and Austria. Then we quickly realized this product is also made for other markets. We should also go to France, Spain, Italy. And then we also set out, okay, if we go there, we can also go to the entire Eurozone. That was, I think, for like 1 or 2 years probably the vision to be the bank in the Eurozone. I think then obviously like once you start to smell the success, you get more greedy. And then we also decided, okay, like this product is way too good to like only keep it to the Eurozone. And we decided, hey, let's go for the big jump, and let's also expand to the United States. I think the United States are always like obviously like historically like a very challenging market, because most of the innovation usually comes from there. These people are often not really used to like us European people coming over there and like changing their game. But I think we are very much out for this challenge. And then the last one is like this word love. I think this is something, and you probably agree, I hope you agree, something that you usually don't hear in the context of banks. Probably like I don't want to like you to raise your hands, but I think it would be fair to say that most people of you don't love your bank, unless you're of course with N26, then you of course do. But I mean here in Spain there is like a lot of other banks like Santander, BBVA, Bankia, like all of these people. I think they all like have the right to exist in this market. But I think that we are really the ones that want to change the way you interact with your bank. Basically like Netflix did, like Spotify did, like Apple does in general. Like we want to change it, like our industry, banking or finance, fintech, however you want to call it. We want to change it exactly like Netflix did entertainment. That's basically the grand vision. Then this is, I think, the problem that we are trying to solve, because obviously whenever you do something, you should solve a problem. This is the big problem. 7 out of 10 millennials say they would rather go to their dentist than to a local bank branch. And given that I really don't like to go to the dentist, you can only imagine how much people really dislike to go to the bank branch. I mean, probably also most of you haven't been, or at least don't enjoy going to a bank branch that much. And that's really like the point that we want to solve. We want to make it very easy for you. We want to make banking accessible, but also we want to make banking nice. We want to make banking lovable. And that's really like the grand vision that we set out for. Then before I jump into some learnings, just like the last, I think one or two last slides on N26, really, this is just like a big overview of our features. I just wanted to show you, in case you haven't seen N26, in case you don't use it yet, you should really use it. I can only recommend, not only because I work there, but also because I can really like promise you it's gonna change the way you interact with your finances. You have nice ways of like getting an overdraft. You have nice ways of looking into your transactions. We have spaces on the far right where you can in 2 clicks create sub accounts. Basically like you can do with Spotify, you can create a playlist in 2 clicks. With N26 you can create a sub account in 2 clicks, and then you can move money, drag and drop. It's very simple, very nice, very intuitive. I'm sure you will like it. Just for you as a background, as I said, as Maria said, actually I'm a product owner at N26. Besides the expansion to Barcelona as like an office, I also take care of the premium cards together with like 2 other product owners, and it's like this entire group of memberships. We, in general, on a very high level, we take care of the physical cards of the premium cards, but also everything that ties together into this membership. Like you have an insurance via Allianz. You also have other benefits, like you don't have to pay fees if you withdraw money in like a foreign exchange if you're traveling. Basically, this entire feature set is built really for travelers, for modern people, young professionals, people that want more out of their bank, but also people that like maybe have like a certain lifestyle that want to like facilitate it with a bank account as well. Cool. Then what is this talk actually going to be about? This earlier part was just about N26, was like a bit about me, but like what is it about? What are the learnings? What do I want to present here? I think like there's four or five major topics. One is like generally what is our scale? I think I touched up on it briefly already, but also what is our setup, and especially product. I will keep most learnings to product development, to like tech design and stuff like this. I won't share much about like marketing, etc. Then one big piece is what are the challenges when scaling up a new office. That's going to be big. I'm in this right now. I'm living in Barcelona for 5 months now, and we have been scaling from 0 employees to already I think 50 to 60. It's getting like at least 10 to 15 more every month. And as you can imagine, there's quite some challenges when you scale up so fast with like so many new people. Then one important piece, how to overcome the initial paralysis. I think there's like when you like at 10 people, that's okay, you can manage. But like once you are like 3 months later, you are at 50 people or 60 people already, it gets a very different challenge. And like it really came in with some sort of paralysis where we didn't really know what to do, because also no one of us did it before. And then what gets harder at scale? I think this is very generic. And in general, I will try to keep the learnings not high level, but generic. So you can also maybe hopefully apply them in your day-to-day life. Because I think our challenge that we face right now, being like a scale-up company in Berlin, opening up a new office in Barcelona, I don't think this is really replicable so easily to like a lot of startups. So I think this happens in a larger scale once you already passed certain amount of funding, certain amount of customers, certain amount of something else. And but again, I would try to keep it generic. I would try to keep like extract what actually is important about this learning, instead of like being very specific about this is what happens if you do this and this and this. Cool. Hola Barcelona. This was what we basically posted on LinkedIn when we announced the office. This was also what we employees saw when the office was initially announced. I think in May or something last year. So you can see it's already like a very long time. It's nearly 1 year already since we announced this office. And again, I'm very happy to be here. Also, Madrid, I think, is a very beautiful city. But I also still have to say Barcelona is very great. So just in case you want to join us, has an ocean. So this is maybe the only thing that Madrid doesn't have, at least so far. It's a very beautiful city regardless. This is the initial team. As I said, all these learnings this is not stuff that I did because I'm so smart. Not at all. It's really about common learnings. People that I spend most of my time with in Barcelona. Just people that have great ideas. People that bring these great ideas to great execution. And like I just happen to be a part of it. So please like just take it as like learnings of all these 7 people. It's actually quickly going to introduce you to each. There's Alina on the top left. She's a tech lead. Then there's Andrea. She's the lead agile coach. Then there's Raresh, also tech lead. Then there's Akash, another product owner. There's Blake as a designer. There's Stan taking care of security. And then there is me. This is the initial team. Very, very cool, like very great bunch of people. And I think this is also very important. Basically we have been but we've been creating a startup inside a startup, because we are like in Berlin, we're like about 700 people or more or less, or maybe even more. Then we now created this office in Barcelona, and I think these 7 people, at least 6 people, including or plus me, we've been like really had very big challenges, and I think this is very applicable also to you if you're like early founders, or if you're just like working in a startup with like 10 to 50 people. I think this is very much applicable, because the challenges are at the end the same, because it's all about people. Like software challenges can always be solved, but I think these people thingies is very hard. It's not like the hardest thing I think in founding a startup, and that's why I also like to focus on most of these things. Cool. I think when we, to give you background on, like I said, scale and the setup, when we thought about, okay, how can we open up this office? What should be the guiding principles? Like which team should we bring over there? Because I think one very big fear that we had, or one big concern, is that we didn't want Barcelona, the new office, to be some sort of place like an agency, which you give all the nasty stuff to. You don't have to, or you don't want to worry about. But we actually said Barcelona needs to be at least equally important to the company as the Berlin office, because we wanted to scale. We want to scale Barcelona. We want to be 200 people at the end of this year. So I think it's like a major growth, 400%. But nonetheless, I think this is like this is really what we want to do. And we decided early on it needs to be very important. It needs to be important topics that we bring over there. Also because like if you create this sort of like agency inside your company which just takes care of random stuff you don't want to do, like these people don't get motivated. Like you really have to help them be motivated. You also have to give this location some purpose. Otherwise, it's not going to turn out anywhere good. So basically, what we decided, what were like our principles to like give you some insight into our thinking. We said whatever we do in Barcelona, or like especially in the beginning. I mean, once you're 200, 300 people, it's like an entire company. So like there can be multiple goals. But in the beginning, we said this entire location needs one common set of KPIs and also goals. Our KPI or also our goal in Barcelona particularly is to increase the revenue. Of course, like everybody in the company, like most teams in the company need to make revenue, but we really decided to bring most of the money making or revenue driving features to Barcelona, which, as you can imagine, even also in a venture backed business, is quite a big risk, because like everything that makes you money, you bring it 6 hours further away from your location, door to door. This is like from a management perspective, not that easy, because like you of course lose some control over what's happening, and like as you can imagine, revenue is like quite core to the business. That's the first one. Then we also realized it is not possible to be super closely aligned. It is, as I said, 6 hours of a flight door to door, like with commute and stuff, and it would just be not a smart decision to bring over things that are very closely coupled to Berlin. One example would be if we would have brought over like a big piece of our payments infrastructure. This would likely not have been a very big success, because obviously like payments is at the core of the company. Like, it's a bank. So as you can imagine, if you take a piece of the banking of the payments infrastructure, bring it over, this only creates a lot of friction, because like you will have to talk over Slack, you will have to talk over Hangout. Even though these tools are nice, and they are also very helpful if you work remote, or like if you work in at least in a distributed fashion, it's just not going to replace the face-to-face interaction. So we said, hey, we should bring over topics that are not so closely coupled to the rest, which we then did effectively with our memberships, because there's some sort of like very downstream. You like not a lot of teams interact with us at this point. It's our own feature. We have like most of the control over it completely on our end. That was, I think, like then a good way to solve this. And we also brought over the other money making features like credit, savings, overdraft, invest, and insurance all over to Barcelona, because also all of these features are mainly independent, and you can like solve the problems all inside one group, instead of having to interact with lots of teams. And then we, as I said, as a stretch before, I'm not going to touch too much on this again, is like high importance of the products. These two product groups that I mentioned are really like core revenue for us. And as you can imagine, it's high risk to do this. And we still said, okay, it needs to be super important, otherwise it's not going to turn out nice. And then the last one that we took into consideration when we decided which teams to bring over is also that the teams we bring over are cross-functional, because we wanted to tap into the entire talent pool of Barcelona, or like everything, Spain, Latin America, people that speak Spanish that might want to live in a similar city like they already do now. We decided, hey, we need to be cross-functional. We cannot just go for backend only teams. For example, like payments is usually like a backend only team. We didn't want to do this, because we said, okay, this would be a waste of talent in Barcelona and everything surrounding, because there's just so much pure talent that we can also attract people in front end and design everything, even though it's of course a bigger challenge and also makes the entire endeavor more hard. Then this was more or less our phase when we really set out to Barcelona. It was again, as I said, no one of us did this before, and we had a lot of questions. It was really hard for us, because no one did it, which meant no one had really any learnings. We all of us 7, we could only guess what's going to happen. And also most of the people in the company and in the leadership, most of them have not built up like offices like this before. Like, of course, they have built up like companies and built up teams, but very infrequently have they built up some sort of team inside a team, where you like we put like a lot of things, a lot of importance into like a completely different location with all the risk that I've been mentioning so far. And it started out with super small things. For example, we have Friday pizza. Where do you turn to for pizza? For all other food, like how do you get the same infrastructure? I mean, we right now operate in a co-working space, which means they take care of like some stuff for us, but that was already like a medium challenge in the beginning. How do you get to set all of this up? because people are obviously expecting the same standard in Barcelona that they also see in Berlin. Because otherwise, again, it would feel like you are like second class, and this is something that we really want to avoid. And Barcelona is on the same tier as Berlin and also as New York. There was one thing, but then again, you have basically 7 people that have contacts with the company. And then you have by this point we have 50 people that have barely any context. Everybody's working like with this big company. Everybody's now working more in like their area. People are really experts in memberships. They understand what it's about to make people members, make people active, and all of this. But maybe we don't have that much knowledge in Barcelona about how payment works or maybe how the platform works. This is like, of course, they understand it, but like it's not that easy to transfer this knowledge if you are first so far away, and also if nearly everyone in the company is like in the office is new. There's only us 7 people, and as you can imagine, this doesn't really scale to have like 7 people tell 50 people what to do. There needs to be some sort of like self-actionism. People need to like drive initiatives themselves. And so at the beginning we really had no idea. We didn't know what to focus on, and it was very much trial and error how we got to all these learnings. And I think in the beginning, like it was it was a lot of pressure also as well, because like you have the leadership that of course then has expectations on the location, and you just don't know how to deliver this in the beginning because it's a bit overwhelming. But I think eventually, like also that now 5 months in, we were able to turn the ship quite around. And yeah, I think there's like 3 main things I want to touch upon. The first one is also going to be like a bit about hypergrowth. It's something, if you actually get to see hypergrowth happening, this is something really great, because it means you are doing something very successfully. That's already, I think, the very first mission. But it also means that you have to build up something bigger than a product. I think building a product is already very hard. Building a successful product even harder. But I think building an organization and building like a successful organization with a strong culture is much harder than building a product. Much harder. And I think like if you think about like where this word culture comes from, this is something. I mean, now here being at Google for startups, I mean, Google is very famous for having a strong culture. But then, like I think 6 months ago, I was also wondering what does it actually mean to have a culture in general. And I think when you think about it or when you look it up, it comes from like, of course, a Latin word, and this Latin word used to mean, or like means care. And then I think once you understand that culture is about care for people, care about what you're doing, then I think this gets into a much better context. And this is something that we have been seeing, that we like whatever we do, we need to take care of the culture, and we also need to take care of hiring balancedly, of actually designing an organization much rather than just like letting it happen. Just to iterate on hypergrowth, most companies face a growth of 20% per year or less. There's like usually the metric you look at is CAGR, compound annual growth rate. And yeah, again, most companies see 20% or less. This means you can apply this to multiple metrics. You can either apply this to employees, you can apply this to revenue, or whatever you want. And basically, like most are 20% or less. Then some fortunate companies are around like 20 to 40. These are usually like already quite successful startups, I would say. And then there is like some very few startups, and like I'm happy that we count to these. Some companies have this so-called hypergrowth, where you grow with like 40% or more per year. And I think like 40% is already would be nice. I think we are growing much more like with 80% or something, both in revenue, customers, and also in employees. And I think that's like, again, it's a very fortunate position to be in, but this also comes in with a lot of challenges. You really have no idea that what are coming. Some other examples now, comparing us with the very best startups in the world. There is, for example, Uber, which grew within 1 year from 75 to roughly 300 people. There is Twitter, I think, if even more crazy, like within 4 years from 100 people to 4,000 people, which is like, I think, massive. There's also Slack, 80 to 320 in like also like 1 year, again, massive. And then Spotify, and I don't really know why Spotify's numbers are so accurate, where everybody else was a bit less accurate. But it's like 311 to 2,162. I think this must have been important for the press department at Spotify. But this happened all in 5 years. And like, I mean, I've been to the office of Spotify at least, and I mean it's an impressive office, like impressive people working over there. But I can now feel also now them being, of course, more advanced in the stages than we are, but I can see and I can feel what they have been through, because like it is crazy to grow, like because like you in the beginning, you like for a long time I knew every employee, nearly most of the employees I knew by name. I knew roughly what they do, where they came from, etc. And at this point, there is no way for me to even know like super close people anymore, because it's just growing so big. It's hard to keep track. Then a very smart man in the magazine of, I think, First Round online magazine, said this, that the law of startup physics is that people grow linearly, whereas companies grow exponentially. And I think this is just to follow up on the hypergrowth debate, or like hypergrowth topic, is that it is also very important for you as an employee to understand how you can best position yourselves in yourself in the company. And this is again going hand in hand with hiring as well, because you need to give people like a growth path, and you need to make sure that people actually can grow at least over linearly. Like it is impossible for someone to grow exponentially unless you are maybe the founder. I think these people are exceptions, but in general, it is very hard, and you need to take this consideration into your organization design. And this is something that I think most people don't do, because most people just happen to have like some sort of organization. They just decide how the organization looks like over like a cup of coffee in a cafe. And I think this doesn't work, because like you really need to carefully design the interactions, because like what you do with organization design at the end of the day manifests itself in the way you work. And I think that's like very, very crucial. Then as I said, I would touch up on the structure and the scale. The scale I now touched, we're like about 850 employees. But these are our 6 segments in product and tech. Every segment of these has like a very clear business objective, or like a very clear objective in general, maybe. I can touch up on first solutions. That's the segment that we brought over to Barcelona. That's really just solutions as in financial solutions, what you need from your bank, that maybe goes also a bit beyond like your current account in general. And this is really, in our case, savings, credit, invest, insurance, overdraft, and also like the memberships. Basically, this premium offering of like what else do you need besides like your general needs. Again, the KPI here is mostly driving revenue. Then we have growth. I think this mostly stands for itself. A lot of companies have this function, or most companies have this function by now. It's all about like user acquisition. How can you have a broader funnel? How can you acquire as many users as possible? How can you acquire them as cheap as possible, and in the best case, as viral as possible? User growth is the KPI here. Platform, I think, is a very tech-driven team. Tech is very hard to always quantify. I think we don't really try to quantify it because it's very hard, but in general, we just try to like ship fast, and this is something that is again very hard to track, but we try to still somehow do. Then assistance is a partner which we have also due to our very crazy customer growth. And as I said, I think we grew like 10x over 2 years, and this is something crazy. We didn't grow our customer service department so fast. And I think what happened back there at one point is that like the time for us to answer your call was like just so dramatically high, that we realized, okay, we need to solve this in other ways than just having more people sit there taking the phone call. And then we created this segment, and in general we started out with like one group in the segment, and we basically started to automate things. We designed and developed our own chatbot, and by now it's very crazy to say actually, because our numbers have been growing so fast, is that we still grow with like, I think, I don't know what we communicate, I think it's like 8 to 10,000 people a day already. And we do have this, and still our customer contacts don't really grow. It's like kind of a flat line, which is very impressive given that we grow so fast. And in the beginning, the customer they have a lot of questions. As it's a bank, it's like a very serious thing for them in their life, which means they will have a lot of questions in the beginning, which means you will have a lot of questions at any given point, because there are so many new customers having all these questions. And now with this segment, we are able to scale the users without even scaling like really the customer service agents. And at this point, like, I think this is like very, very important to mention also. Then local markets, as I said, we go to the United States, we will go to Brazil, we will go to other bigger markets this year. And I think that there it's important that we have these teams that can really solely focus on this given expansion ahead. But it's also important to mention that it's not only one team taking care of the entire expansion to a new market. Given the big infrastructure, that's impossible at this point. Right now, for us, it's more important to have dedicated teams that do specific things for the market. But at the end of the day, it's very central, where everybody does their changes. For example, if now we go to the US, we also want to have our premium cards over there. Of course, like I think the metal card is something that will work very well in the United States. And this is something that we as a membership team will do, because otherwise, if there is one team that does all of this also again doesn't scale. And this is something that we, again, whenever we do something now, it really has to be baked into the design and baked into whatever we do is that it scales, because like we're now at like 850 employees. I don't know where we'll be in 1 year, probably like 1,500, something like this. And that's quite crazy. And then the last one is activity, and I think this is something I would bet my ass on that like most banks don't do, because at the end of the day, banks have been historically monetizing the balance sheet. Basically, the more money they have, the more money they can give in mortgages, and the more money they make on the mortgages. Basically, it was all about this. And now in the state of like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, all of these like social networks, it's much more about time, and it's much more about where you spend this time, and like then this you can capitalize. Of course, we're never going to have ads, I'm pretty sure, but still it's about like where you spend the time, because at the end of the day, I would go so far to say that activity equals revenue, because like it is very hard to quantify in what way, but it's still, I'm very sure to say that it will have massive impact on the revenue the more active customers you have, because we also see this, that our premium customers are, of course, before they upgrade they're more active, and after they upgrade they're even more active. So that's, I think, an important group and also focus to have in the company. Then what did we do very specifically to not like leave you with like super high level things? There was two things specifically in hiring and in this hypergrowth phase that we've seen work very well in Berlin, but that we've also like adopted back in Barcelona. It's one is the onboarding process. So I think I remember when I joined 2 years ago, I had an onboarding of roughly 1 hour. Someone said, "Hey, yeah, that's the company. Please take care of your passwords. Off you go." That was more or less it. And then they said, "Ah, yeah, by the way, we have Confluence. You can read on Confluence." It's like, okay, cool, thanks. Then we grew a lot, and then we realized, okay, this doesn't scale. And like now 2 years fast forward, all of our employees have like, I think, in 1.5 day onboarding process, like a very specific one, where they get to go through all departments, where every department gives them some sort of onboarding, like gives them like basically like some pep talks, and also like lets them understand where we are going in as a company, and like where these departments are going. I think that's already a big change. Also, like our entire onboarding process, I can now talk about very explicitly, because we have right now like one product owner that is being onboarded. Right now, she's in Berlin, but I think next week, next Monday, she'll be with us in Barcelona, and like already now she's there for like now 2 weeks, and then this entire thing is an onboarding. Like we don't really let her like start just right ahead, because we know this world got much too complex for us. Like it's not possible to like to give someone an onboarding in 1 hour and say now you start delivering. This might have been possible like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when you also don't really know better. But like now that we know better, we give her like a 2 week onboarding in Berlin. Then I think we will like there's a team waiting for her. Like we really need her help in Barcelona. But nonetheless, we're not gonna like push her onto the team on Monday when she arrives, because again, this would not set her up for success. And this is something you really have to keep in mind for every new joiner that you have, even if you're the CEO or if you're just another employee. It doesn't make a big difference, because at the end of the day, everybody needs to lead and everybody needs to help the new colleagues. And that's what we realized about onboarding. Like we designed these processes about like 6 weeks now, where like 2 weeks are very intense, and of course over the next weeks then maybe it fades out a bit. But this is really important for no matter what you do in a job. If you're an engineer, I've seen it, people believe you can onboard an engineer in 2 days and they will start writing production code the third day. Doesn't work, I can tell you. It's more about like until the first commit maybe takes like 2 weeks, or if not longer, and until they're very productive and until they can really take ownership of things, it will for sure take 3 months. And this is something you also have to cater in. Of course, if you're a startup where like the infrastructure is like very small, different story again, right? But if you grow, and if you design your startup to be like very big, then you have to take this into consideration. And I think this is like a quote by the founder of LinkedIn, like Reid Hoffman. He said that it's a very big difference if you design your company to be like a $0 million business or a $0 billion business. So at the end of the day, it's the same number, right? It's still zero, but it is a very different mindset. And I think if you, of course, if you go for like a 0 million mindset or like a 0 million company, you can do a lot of things. You can just skip it. But if you really at least have the aspiration, I think no one can be sure to build like a unicorn. This is like it's impossible to do. But if you really have the ambition, at least to try it, then you should like also take these things into consideration: how to onboard people, how to make them successful, because at the end of the day, they cannot do that themselves. And then buddies is also again a very pragmatic approach. where we realized that if you're new to the company, there's like a lot of these unwritten rules, like how to use a coffee machine steamer, or like all of these weird things that like every company does a bit different. And that's something that we realized that like it is good to have like your onboarding buddy, which takes you through the company for like 1 week or two maybe, which tells you about like how things go, which is there for like asking these random questions like, oh, what is the dress code? And like when you join a company, no matter the size, you always have tons of these like generic or like random questions that you maybe don't want to ask someone. But there we introduce this buddy system to really make sure people get the help they need. Is this password now correct? Of course not. Cool. That's basically the thing. Everybody gets a buddy. This buddy is usually in the company for more than 6 months. That's of course not working in Barcelona because nearly no one is in the company for more than 6 months in Barcelona besides 7 people. But it's still like we figured it out. Like it's very helpful for everybody. Then does communication scale? I phrase it in this way because like of course it doesn't really, because like in the beginning, if you're like 7 people all in one room, it's super easy, right? You don't even need Slack. Maybe you can just like shout through the room, and then people will give you an answer. Then if you're 70, maybe it already is much harder. And then like at 700 in or 700, 850 in 5 offices, 3 in Berlin, 2 like 1 each in New York and Barcelona, is already a very different game. And I can tell you it to some degree scales, but you really have to be very carefully working on this. Again, just to quickly say, these are the 3 locations, 850 employees, 60 nationalities. I think that's also something to be very proud of. That this is a very N26 is not a German company. There is, I mean, maybe now I'm German, but most of the people in the company are not German, and they come from wherever they come from. We have a lot of Brazilian people, a lot of people from Russia, from Poland, from everywhere in the world, India. I don't even know. Like I think we have like 26 Australians already, and that's just crazy. But it's something that really happens to happen on this stage. Then yeah, what do we do very specifically? How did we go about scaling our communication? So we have this weekly meeting, which is just called weekly P&T. I think it has a very generic name. P&T stands for product and tech, and it's something that we already have for all the time I'm here. Like it's a very old meeting. It's like 3 years old for sure, and it happens every week on the very same time, unchanged for 3 years. So I think that's anyway something to be, which is cool to like have these rituals. But what we do or what we did in the P&T planning 2 years ago, like for the longest time, we basically did it some sort of as a reporting meeting where C-level would come in, like 2 or 3 people, CTO, CPO, maybe someone else that's interested right now. They would come here in and understand what we achieved in the last week. And this did work when you have like 5 teams, 6 teams. Then it some sort of works where like it is also digestible when 6 people say we achieved this, and this. It works. And then we realized now we are like, I think 20, I counted last week, it's 26 product teams or something. And you can imagine that we achieve so many things, even if it's smaller or bigger things, if it's customer facing or not customer facing. There are so many things that it is not possible to like update in 30 minutes on like what we achieved in this week. So we kind of turned around this meeting and also made it more remote friendly and said, okay, let's, instead of report to people, let's minimize the reporting part to 5 minutes and use the other 25 minutes for like celebration, where now we come together like all product managers from 3 different locations, and everybody dials in and we talk about, hey, what did you achieve? And then we have the slide deck where everybody puts the biggest achievements, what they like. It can be either things. It can be something you just built, it can be something you release and which got a lot of traction. It doesn't matter. It's really a meeting for us as product and tech. And I think we have the same in design where we have like, I think 25 designers, again, also in 3 locations. And they again meet every week, always at the same time for the last 3 years already. And they share celebrations. They do like 2 small, nice, very nice things, I think. First, they always have like a weekly playlist on Spotify where everybody can add like a nice song and some song that maybe also displays their mood of the week. And then they actually very explicitly ask for the mood of the week, where they say, hey, I felt like a 3 this week, this is why. And over time they have this nice graph which shows like how happy they were, last week, 2 weeks ago, 4 months ago. And I think this is very cool to also like take care of this, like, take care of people and foster the culture. Next one, coordinating releases. This is also something that we do very much in this meeting, also like every other week or something, where again 26 teams, there is a lot of output, a lot of coordination that's needed. We release every 3rd week to the app stores, Google Play Store and App Store. And again, there's lots of coordination. We at this point have a lot of testing to be done in this like big application, and we've really seen that it is very important to have like like some sort of like guidance. We take care of this release coordination always in the same meeting. It is we always know when it's coming up. It's always in the same sheet as the celebrations and stuff. And by this, we just know when it's happening, and we know like which meetings are also very important to attend, also if you're remote, because these are meetings you can then design to be more remote friendly, whereas other meetings maybe don't need to be as remote friendly. Then talking about it, remote work is very, very definitely not centralized work. I think this is something that we have been learning the hard way. When N26 is, you have to see it's like a very centralized company, or like it used to be. Everything was in Berlin. We like 1.5 years ago, we had no New York, we had no Barcelona, we had one office in Berlin. Then we had like a second office in Berlin, but that's already like the biggest that we could achieve in Berlin, and that was quite straightforward. You could always meet in person. If you realize something is not easy to discuss over Slack, it was quite straightforward to just meet in person, sit together, understand what's the problem, and then do it. Now this changes quite a bit if you have like again 3 locations, and if like everybody's working on different things. And I think anyways, most companies nowadays design again their workflows to be more remote friendly. And a lot of people, I think maybe in this room, also have like remote colleagues that are sitting somewhere in the sun. Okay, Madrid is also sunny, but sitting somewhere else. And I think this is really important that you think about small things, like if you work remotely, how do you do whiteboard sessions? Because whiteboarding doesn't really work if you're not in the same room. Like there's all these sorts of things that you do, like again this like our culture of like just talking to someone like 5 minutes, walking by their desk, talking about the thing. This doesn't scale, and this doesn't work if you're remote, because like there is small things that come together when you want to be remote friendly. One example is, and that we try to tell all of our new joiners, is to have a picture on Slack and to have like a description of what they do in the company. Because otherwise, how would you be able to build up some sort of connection to someone where you don't really know the face, you don't really know what they're doing? And it's like it is not a problem if you're like 30 employees or 50 or 100, but really if you're scratching on the surface of like 1,000, it is a big problem that like someone doesn't know how someone else looks, and like the human touch really is missing. And that's I think the only big problem that remote work has, is that people feel lonely, and people don't feel part of the bigger thing anymore. And that's I think what we try to solve with like all these small initiatives. And then longer term planning. I think I had like a meetup roughly 1 year ago, where I was really not talking very good about like quarterly planning and stuff. I was very much of the opinion that quarterly planning is not for successful startups. It is not helpful, because then you become slower, and then blah 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 blah. But then I think like also like half a year ago, like 3 6 months ago, whatever, I sort of changed my mind, and we actually implemented some like a quarterly planning, where every product manager comes together in one room for basically an entire day. Everybody comes in prepared. Everybody brings like some sort of like card which says this is the topic that I want to do. And then of course you have like, depending on the team, you have like 10 to 30 different cards. And then you put this up on one big wall. Then you start aligning. Then you start understanding, okay, we need this to do, or to do this. We need the payment team to do this before. And you start to slowly over the entire day. And I think we will expand this to 1.5 days or 2 days going forward. Over this time, you will see, okay, what needs to happen at the same time, what can maybe not even be done because some other team is completely full. There is not even like one single minute left that you could maybe capitalize on. And then sometimes you just have to accept that certain things will not get done in this quarter. And I think, like, of course, like eventually maybe we'll plan even more forward. But I think for this time right now, and I think even if you're a bit younger, like if you're like younger in a startup or smaller, it can be very beneficial for you to do these like quarterly plans, because this has multiple benefits. Of course, you become a bit slower. You will just feel slower, because of course you cannot just change your route every day because like you committed to something. But on the other hand, you will have all the other people in the business, like marketing. They will have like more or less like a big plan for 3 months, what they will be able to put out on the market. And that's I think a big benefit of like scaling, when like you know some teams can just rely on you. You give them an update every third month, and you say, okay, this is what we do, blah blah blah. Very helpful. Second very big benefit is, and I think most of you that work in product will know this, a lot of people from other teams will say, hey, I have this idea, hey, I have this idea, hey, I have this idea, blah 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 blah. They will keep on saying this, hey, I have this idea. And this is gone, because like these people have the chance once every quarter for 1 week to give input. But then they cannot just say, in our case, maybe in other cases, yes, in our case they cannot say, hey, I have this idea, I want you to implement X. And if they want X to be considered, they have to explain first, what is the benefit of X? Not only in words like, oh yeah, our customers are going to love this, but you will also have to quantify how many customers are going to love this, why are they going to love this, and how can we test this, and what did you do before to verify that this is actually a good idea and actually a problem, instead of just shouting at us. And this is something that we do, and also, like, again, was brought into the product teams again 2 weeks, I think, before the planning. People get this brief of like what other teams have been requesting them to do, and they can plan this into their roadmap. And this, I think, has been tremendously successful, because otherwise, as a PM, you will always have to say no, 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 no. And I think a lot of people in the business also preach it, and they say, hey, the best PMs always say no, or like most oftenly say no. And I think this is still, as like a general first principle, it is true that you have to say no to a lot of things. But on the other hand, like, your job is to some degree also to say yes, and to enable things and to enable initiatives. And I think, like, a quarterly planning process, and if someone of you has like more questions on this, I have some material I can share with you. It's going to be very helpful, because like you get the company on board, and everybody, like, you in the beginning, you start to align interests, which I think is very hard if you're just growing quickly and like everybody is working on different things. Then again, more specifically, something that we did, or that we do, I think we do it already for like more than 1 year, but like also adopted in Barcelona, to give the team some cohesion, and also to give connection to the rest of the business. We have GSDD. It stands for Getting Stuff Done Days. And basically what we do is every 6th week, and this is actually happening from Thursday and Friday this week, everybody in the company can, more or less everybody, can do whatever they want. Of course, they should work on N26, and they should do something cool. But at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want. That's very helpful. It is a bit, again, now being here at Google, it's a bit like what Google does, I think, where they say, hey, 80% of your time you spend on Google, and then 20% you can spend on your like side project for Google, at Google, whatever context it is. I think we kind of adopted like something similar, where we say, hey, we are not really there yet where we can carve out 20% of everybody's time. We're not that big yet, but we can at least carve out two days every 6 weeks, where you can work on whatever you want. And that has been also very successful, because first you show people your trust. They can also work on their initiatives, and that has been just very helpful for like the cohesion of the team, and also for the output. We did like there's very cool things that come out. I think last Get Stuff Done Days, like 6 weeks or 5 weeks ago, someone actually designed and developed like a mini game you can play in our web chat. So if you now go into the chatbot and someone replies you, maybe you have to wait. In the meantime, you can play a mini game. It's a bit like when in Chrome you have no internet, you can like then play a mini game, and this you can also now do in our chat. Of course, this would never go on any roadmap. Never ever would someone say, yes, let's spend like days building a mini game. Of course not. But if you have it, it's actually quite nice. I think you will hopefully agree. And this is something that happens at these days. This is I wouldn't go so far, but maybe you can say this is like where the real magic happens, where like engineers just like go out with all their creativity and do stuff. Then rituals will be your best friend. I think this is something most startups are really not believing in much. And to be fair, like I also came from a very small startup. Like I think I've seen scaling up from 0 employees to 20 employees. But what really helped also now at N26, also especially now in Barcelona, that's why I'm pretty sure it's also going to happen at any other small stage startup, is to build up your rituals. It can be this P&T planning. It doesn't need to be meetings. It can be everything, right? Just do stuff repeatedly, like make stuff a habit, and then it will be much more successful. What we did, I think I wasn't sure like this is going to be so important, or maybe I was even thinking the opposite, but actually setting up like very strong agile rituals is super helpful, because again, if you have like these 50 people that are all genuinely very smart, but are also all very, very new to the company and have no context to why certain decisions were done this way, and like why other things are the way they are, because in a company that has grown so quick, not everything is perfect, right? Like a lot of things just were decided because they had like 2 days left and like not 1 week left to do something. But agile rituals, like really having like a strong planning cycle, maybe even to a level where it gets a bit obnoxious, where it gets get a bit annoying, where like you have to go to all these like things, review, retro, planning 1 and 2, and then like refinement and everything. It might feel like, oh, this is so much overhead, but it maybe only feels the way to you, because like you as a PM, you have so much background to this product and you know why it's the way it is. But then you have these 5 or 10 engineers who have joined like 2 months ago, no idea, no way they know the same as you do. And basically all these rituals are really helpful for them to first have some structure, because like I mean like a product manager's life is somewhat structured through the meetings, But an engineer's life is often not that structured. They can like really sit a lot on the desk and really develop things in the best case. Sometimes engineers also have like lots of meetings, but in the best case, they have a lot of time to think and to build the architecture they were designing on the whiteboard. And I think these rituals are exactly super helpful to help these engineers, because I mean, some people think, yeah, it's faster to just start, and like just be fast, let's do it. But at the end of the day, and I think this quote is not coming from Lucia, like, but she's a colleague of mine. She's actually originally from Madrid, and she said that like, or she always writes that like a day of planning, or like hours of planning can save you weeks of development. And I think this is like it's funny, because like sometimes she says it the opposite way on purpose, where she says like, yeah, you can develop for weeks what you could have planned in some hours. I think this is really important to think about, because like a lot of people think it's much faster to just start, but usually it's not. And like usually these rituals really help you a lot, making this machine run smoother and smoother, especially if you have engineers that also challenge you. Then inceptions. This is something that we didn't invent. It's not on us. We're not maybe not always that smart, but this is something that we also integrated into the company like maybe 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, where we realized that all these big projects are very hard, because like if you maybe don't build a bank but something else, then it's maybe easier to develop an MVP in like 2 weeks, 4 weeks or something. But in a bank, an MVP often turns into like 3-4 month effort, because there's just like you're dealing with people's money, so you cannot just throw something out like Facebook says when they say, hey, move fast and break things. Doesn't work in a bank. You have to move slow and not break things. And that's why we kind of invented, or like not invented, but like adopted these inceptions. It looks a bit like this, where we say that like an inception is like definitely like a powerful way to like get everybody on board shortly before the work actually starts. So like you can imagine an inception to happen when you drew out what you want to accomplish. You said, okay, we want to build spaces, for example. You want to develop a sub account for your customers. You have the design ready. You know what's the vision, and you know what's coming up. You know what's the business goal. Everything is prepared. You can start tomorrow. Let's say this is the case. And then you don't start tomorrow, but now the twist, you start tomorrow in a week, because like then you will carve out like 5 weeks of the team's complete schedule. So everybody is off for like 5 days, and kind of does this. Um, Again, as a PM, you know all of the stuff. Hopefully, like you know exactly what you want to achieve, but it's much less about you knowing it. It's more about like how can you transfer this knowledge to your team, because otherwise, if you don't transfer to the team, they will just wander around and have all sorts of different ideas and don't know exactly, because like if you don't communicate very explicitly, they will fill in all the voids. They will, like, it's not a problem. They will do something, that's okay, but like usually maybe they don't do exactly what you thought it would do, and then you have these long cycles, and then you also don't release that often, because like you have these things that you need to fix midway through. And basically what we do in this inception, and again, it is not always 5 days. In this case of spaces, I think it was 5 days, because it was a very big project at the time. But often it can only be also be 2 days or 3 days. It really depends on the scope of what you want to accomplish. But basically it's taking a step back. It's looking at who are the users, what are the goals, how will we quantify this, where do we stand today, but like also like other things, what is the feature, what is the product, and sometimes more importantly, also for the understanding, what is this feature or this product not. Because like if you think about a sub account, then you can do 1 million things. Like I think the border, like the sky is the limit in this case, and you can do like again so many things. But then it's really about, as in good product management, what do you do not. And this is also for your team again to understand what they should not focus on. Because if you see this big infrastructure, maybe it's good to understand what is coming up in like some months, some years time. But I think it's also important to see like maybe what's not coming up very soon, because maybe this you can ignore on the design then. And then it's again also about like risk, story mapping, complexity, first estimations. And basically the result for you will be like a good plan of what you want to do, what are the stories, how can this be broken down, how long will this roughly take. Because I mean, as you people will know, like it's very important to also communicate to your stakeholders what is the rough estimate of how long it's going to take, because people are really going to wait for it. Like if you say it's going to be there in 6 weeks, most often in most cases for me, it just doesn't work. And then user research, also another ritual that we have implemented quite successfully in the company, where I think the process roughly looks like this, where you have your objectives, you understand, okay, what is the hypothesis that we want to address or to test? What are the methods that we want to use to do this? What is like how will we conduct this? Who is going to conduct this? And again, how do you synthesize this all before the cycle starts over again? And this is something again we have been doing quite good, I think, in Berlin. And then again, we spent like 3 months in Barcelona, like setting up all the things, and like it's very easy to be in this paralysis, which I meant, where you think, yeah, we do this, like you research like later 2 weeks or something, because you're so busy. But at the end of the day, implementing user research for you and in your location, wherever you are, is a very important topic. Maybe it's not super urgent. I think it's actually urgent and important, but maybe it's not super urgent, but it's for sure important. And so I can only tell you, like it has been for us super helpful. And what we do now is basically we spend every second week, every Thursday, we invite 8 customers to the office, and we just like spend time with them 1 hour each, walking them through like prototypes that we have right now, showing them things that we are building. Of course, they sign an NDA, and then we can be very open with them, and we can show them a lot of things that we have in the pipeline. Also things that we are not really sure of if they're going to be very successful, or if that's the way how we want to solve them. But we just like to show our customers very early and very transparently what we have coming up for them. And even like some people that are coming more from the like a quantitative side of analysis, they would say, yeah, but what can you learn from like 8 customers? I would say actually quite a lot, because like I think qualitative data is always very good for you to like show what's happening in general. And like if you ask the right questions, also 8 people can really help you understand why this is happening. And this is like I think that what we learned for sure, that like also having this cycle of every second week, every Thursday, having this research is great, because it gives your design some sort of like rhythm and some sort of cadence. But it also helps you because like you can in this meeting, it's most often like the designer Blake and me, and but sometimes we also invite like other engineers, like front and back end, just to join us, to also have like interactions with the customer. Because like I mean, every Silicon Valley person preaches this all the time, and I think it's actually quite straightforward to adopt. You just need to talk to the customer more often. And like a lot of people in the company don't talk to a customer at all. Like most people have, I mean, I don't know how many of you talked to one customer this year. I think even this number would be quite low. Not because none of you are smart, like for sure, I'm sure there's like great people in this room. It's just because most people default not to do it. Most people say, yeah, I can do it tomorrow. It's like, I'm just going to do it later. But people tend to just not do it at all, because like there's always something more urgent in the pipeline than user research. But I think this is like, it's 101 of like product management, but still people kind of ignore it. And I think it's also easy to ignore. I'm not even mad if someone ignores it. Then postmortems. This is also something. Again, we didn't invent this. Like most of the things we didn't invent, we just kind of like bring good practices together. And like it's always new people that bring in these practices. Basically, what a postmortem is imagine some incident happens in your company. It can be whatever. It can be delayed cards. It can be like a technical incident. It can be like, it can also honestly, it can be something, maybe 2 teams didn't work properly together, and you had like this project which just was super slow. Can be whatever you want, something that didn't work quite well. And then you would just kind of come together in a room and discuss it. Because I mean, in most companies, and what happens is like everybody understands this incident didn't work quite well, this interaction or whatever. But most often it would happen in like behind closed doors. People would argue about, this was so shit to work with, and blah blah blah. And then all these like office politics that inherently come at one point, they come out. But I think if you organize postmortems frequently, and I think we have multiple a week. It's not like, this is not something that we do like on a quarterly basis. Maybe this is something we do like easily every week. There's always something to look into, and then there's always something to discuss. Because if you give your people like a forum for actually discussing these topics, it is for them also much easier to address problems. And then like how like postmortem usually looks like is kind of like this, where you will end up with like a written incident report. And I think this written part is quite important, because like having protocols and having like putting stuff into writing is genuinely super helpful for your thinking, and for like also structuring these things, and also ultimately to share this. Because if you have a meeting in writing, you can share it like in 1 second. You can send it to your boss, you can send it to other people on the team, for them to understand what happened, instead of like just like long time explaining them what happened. This is also actually a tip. Like written communication is extremely helpful, because like it's much easier to forward someone an email instead of like getting them up to speed. And this is something we do. Like we now send a lot of follow-up emails. We just summarize emails, meetings. And this is something that, of course, we don't have dedicated people to just type. It's always someone different that types this stuff up, but it's very helpful, because like also it makes sure you're on the same page. Because if you send this follow-up, there will be one or two things maybe where you had a different opinion, and then you can like discuss this, and then you are sure that you actually have the same opinion. And then like other things that we also tackle, like what were the effects, what was the root cause, what do we actually do to like prevent, like to jump in and to like intervene, and ultimately like what are the steps that we want to take. Kind of like it's a bit like a retro and like agile, but more like on an incident basis. Yeah. And then cool, that was it. Thanks so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I think it was a beautiful day today. So very, very happy that all of you showed up. Generally, if you're interested in working for N26 in Berlin, Barcelona, New York, you can for sure hit me up. You can also just go to our jobs page. And otherwise, I would open up for questions. And again, very, very happy that all of you have been here. Has been a great, great time so far.